My name is Jasmine Martinez, and I'm doing my presentation on bovine spongiform encephalopathy. So, etiology, what causes this disease? BSE is caused by a prion, and that is a type of protein that can trigger normal proteins in the brain to fold abnormally. So, BSE is a neurologic disease, and it is caused by the modified form of a normal protein that causes damage to the central nervous system. So reasons why the normal prion protein mutates into an abnormal prion protein and becomes harmful to the body are unknown. So the affected species mainly are cattle, but sheep, goats, deer, and elk can be affected by BSE-like diseases such as scabies in sheep and goats. So the only household pet known to contract this disease are cats, and it is actually called feline spongiform encephalopathy. And they are caused by the same agent, and they do have the same behavioral symptoms. My name is Jasmine Martinez, and I'm doing my presentation on bovine spongiform encephalopathy. So etiology, what causes this disease? BSE is caused by a prion, and a prion is a type of protein that can trigger normal proteins in the brain to fold abnormally. This modified form of a normal protein causes damage to the central nervous system, which is making BSE a neurologic disease. Now, reasons why the normal prion protein mutates into an abnormal prion protein and becomes harmful to the body are unknown. Affected species. So mainly cattle are affected by BSE, but other species such as sheep, goats, deer, and elk can be infected by a BSE-like disease, such as scabies in sheep and goats. Now, the only the only household pet known to contract a disease like BSE are cats, and it is called feline spongiform encephalopathy, and it is caused by the same prion protein responsible for BSE, and they both have the same behavioral symptoms. Now, the symptoms for BSE do include having trouble walking, standing, they may stumble everywhere, behavioral changes such as aggression, weight loss, decreased milk production, and the most common sign is incoordination. Now, the symptoms do take about 4 to 6 years to show, so between the first time the cow is infected, from 4 to 6 years, then there will be no symptoms. Transmission. So BSE is normally a food-borne exposure. When an animal or human ingests the BSE prion, they are then infected with BSE. It is not contagious, so it's not contracted or transmitted by contact or aerosols. It can be transmitted from offspring, so if an infected cow gives birth, that offspring has more of a chance of getting BSE than an offspring coming from a healthy cow. Most cases of BSE in cattle are diagnosed between the years 3 to 6. Now, this will suggest that majority of cattle that are infected with BSE, it happens between the first 6 months of their life. Prevention and treatment methods. So unfortunately, there are no current effective treatments or vaccines for BSE, since the abnormal prion protein is resistant to enzymatic breakdown and most disinfective treatments. The most effective measure is the prohibition of putting meat and bone meal into the cattle's feed. Putting meat and bone meal into the cattle's feed puts more of a risk of contamination because since there is such a long period of no symptoms, there is not a way of knowing which cows have BSE unless they're showing symptoms. And there are currently no tests that can be done on a live cattle for BSE. Now, euthanasia is advised from when the first symptoms do occur, because once the animal starts to show symptoms, they do get worse and worse, and it does put the caretaker's welfare at risk. Now, is BSE zoonotic? Then the short answer is yes. BSE can be transferred to humans, and it is actually called VCJD. Um, and it is contracted by eating contaminated cow meat. And the symptoms are very similar as to BSC. So it's loss of intellect and memory, changes in personality and behavior, so loss of balance and things like that, slurred speech, vision problems, and possibly blindness. So geographical occurrence, the first case of BSC was reported in the UK, and there was a BSC epidemic in Europe during the late 80s to the early 2000s. Now, the only reported cases of BSC in the US have been from imported cattle from Canada. And this is my works cited. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.